No matter your age, your plan for retirement can start today. From the News Channel 5 Network, this is the Retirement Report.
Good morning. Welcome to the Retirement Report. I'm Hank Parrott, your host. Well, this morning, we've been looking at the stock market over the last 6 weeks, approximately year to date for 2016. And one of the things we're seeing, of course, is some pretty bad news. So in fact, if we look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, now I understand the market futures this morning are looking a little up. We'll see how it plays out through the day. Biggest thing to take away, though, is that we're seeing right now, year to date, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down about 10%, as is the S&P. That's a pretty rough start to a year. In fact, it's the worst start in the history of the stock market. So what does this mean? How do you protect yourself? Because when you see that kind of news, a lot of the tendency is, of course, you get maybe scared. I have people that say, I don't even want to look at my statements. I just only, when I have new clients that are coming in, for instance, they look at, and we're talking about the markets and we're talking in general about investing, and they're saying, when my statements come, I don't even want to look at them anymore. I'm so nervous about things. Well, this is one of the areas that doesn't really help necessarily. Maybe it makes you feel a little bit better, but here's the thing to understand. It is a good time to take a look at your portfolio and see, in fact, just how is it doing relative to the market. Is it, if you've got a mix of stocks and bonds, it may not be, so the Dow and the S&P being down 10%, depending on your mix on the fixed side, if it's short-term fixed, that might be, taking that down a notch. Maybe it's only down 5 or 6%, maybe half what the market is, as an example. And depending on how you're invested, there are actually, and I'm going to talk about this morning, there are actually ways right now that you can hedge a portfolio. You can, I've got portfolios that are making money right now. Okay, and I'm going to share that with you. There are indexes that are making money that are up 5% when the market's down 10%. So maybe that's something you would be interested in finding out more about. Much better to have a 5% gain in the first 6 weeks of this year than a 10% loss, right? So here's one of the things when it comes to investing. We're going to look at different ways that you can invest, ways that you can protect yourself, hedging strategies of ways to, when the markets are down, how can you protect your principal? How can you, in fact, make sure you're going to, in the long term, make the needed rate of return to achieve your financial goals? Because that's really what it's about. We want to make sure that we don't run out of money, that we're making enough on our money to stay ahead of inflation and taxes, and that we're able to maintain our standard of living and quality of life no matter how long we live. So what are the best strategies for that? Well, there's a lot of research on this, and there's a lot of science, if you will, behind how to invest. And when I say science, what I mean is simply this. We've had Nobel Prize winners like Dr. Eugene Fama, who I've talked about, in the three-factor model he developed and winning the Nobel Prize in 2013 for his equity research. Dr. Robert Shiller, who also won the Nobel Prize in economics in 2013 for his equity research and what's known as the Shiller Cape Index. It's also been a good forecast of what's going to happen in the market in the long term, and by that I mean, say, 8 to 10 years out, what the expectation might be. So these indexes have been turned into investment vehicles. There's another one by JP Morgan Chase, the Mosaic, which I've talked about before, which has shown some real promise. So one of the things I look at is I look at the science that's out there. I look at how the best way to invest is, how the smart money invests, just as I talk about in my book. And one of the things that we get into in chapter 5 of the book, which is How the Smart Money Invests, is portfolio design, and it works specifically off of Dr. Eugene Fama's research and the development of the portfolios that came out of that. So we're going to get into that a little bit more this morning. One of the things that I also want to talk to you about is some of the risk in retirement. See, you got to make money, but you also have to protect yourself against downside risk. So one of the things that may be at the forefront right now in your mind has to do with the stock market. So if you're invested in the stock market, you may be concerned about, of course, stock market risk, about the potential for losing money on your investments, investment risk. Now, another is interest rate risk, and that goes with Interest rates are so low historically that that has a big effect as well. Where do I put my money? If I don't put it in the stock market and take that risk, and I put it in safe things like CDs or fixed type accounts, now I've got to be concerned that I'm not going to make enough to stay ahead of inflation and taxes. So these are some of the concerns we're going to get into, and some other risks and how to protect yourself. All right, we've got a caller, so we'll take that, and that is Joe. Welcome to the Retirement Report.
Good morning.
How you doing today?
All right, I have a brief question for you. Well, a couple of questions.
Sure.
On the IRAs, if it's in your name or whatever, and you pass away and it goes to your wife,
Right.
is it still taxable, your gains, or not?
Okay, so I'm guessing, Joe, you've got what is known as a traditional IRA as opposed to a Roth IRA, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so in a traditional IRA, yes, if you pass away and your wife now has two options, she can either do what's known as a spousal rollover, meaning she can put it as if it's her IRA. All right, and then she'll have to take required minimum distributions, but it'll be based on her age. Okay, at that time, and if she's under 70 and a half, for instance, she would not have to take those RMDs until such time. When she pulls the money out, it will be taxable, okay, whether before 70 and a half or after. The next thing is, if it's when she's taken the money out, she has the option of keeping it as a beneficial IRA or an inherited IRA. Now the problem with that one being she would have to be required by the rules to take out even more, and that could give her less control in terms of taxes, because she's going to have to pay tax on it either way.
How is it determined when you... I've been in an IRA for quite a while.
Right.
And how do they determine, is the whole IRA, if you was to just take it out of the IRA, is the whole thing taxable?
Correct.
Or just the gains that it's made?
No, the whole thing is taxable. Here's where, there are three types, let's say, of retirement accounts that we most commonly see anyway. The traditional IRA, which is 100% taxable. The money was put in and no tax was paid at that time. You got to defer taxes until the future. So when you take it out, both the principal and the earnings are taxable. You have a Roth IRA. When you put that money in, you've already paid tax on the money you put in, and the Roth rules allow it to grow on a tax-deferred basis. And as long as you've left it in, let's say for 5 years as an example, and you're taking money out, now it is tax-free, both the principal and the interest. And then lastly, there are retirement accounts like annuities. Okay, some of these you see in retirement, like 403Bs or TIA-CREF. There are different retirement type plans that have them, and of course you can buy private insurance annuities as well. These, the money that goes in, if it's a traditional IRA, then the tax rules are the same whether it's in the annuity or in some other form of investment. If, however, you've invested money in that you've already paid tax on, then that principal is never taxed, only the interest on it would be taxed. So those are the three retirement type accounts and the way those rules work. In your situation as traditional IRA, whether you're pulling the money out, your spouse is pulling the money out, if she inherits, or if it goes to your children, at all times it will be at 100% taxable at ordinary income tax rates. In other words, at the income tax rate of the person pulling it out. You can control it though, Joe, in terms of how much tax. All right, and you asked if you pulled all of it out, for instance, would it be taxable? What can happen, and I talk to people all the time about this, if you take out too much, maybe you're thinking I'm going to pay off some debts or use that money to pay off the mortgage, whatever. The problem being that all of it that you pull out, that lump sum, is taxable, and it can increase your ordinary income tax rate to the point that maybe push it up into a 25% tax rate versus maybe a 15% or 10% tax rate. So how you pull the money out is real important to minimize the amount of taxes paid.
Is there anything you can do if you want to take the IRA and put it into some other investment? Is there anything you can do
to help reduce taxes?
Yes.
This is where Roth conversions come in. And again, depending on your given situation as to how this might apply.
I don't have earned income.
You don't need it. You don't need earned income to do a Roth conversion. And what we do there is we look at your overall tax situation, what you have for taxable income, and we determine how much of the IRA we can convert over to a Roth without increasing the tax rate on that money. And that way we can start converting that over into tax-free accounts. So there is a way to do it. But I'd have to see your specific situation to know how to do, what would work for you, in other words.
Is there not a minimum that you can put into a Roth per year?
Well, again, now you're talking, there's a difference between contributing to a Roth IRA based on having earned income. Say $5,000 a year, and there's an extra, I think it's $1,000 or $1,500 you can put in once you're over age 50, right? But that's with earned income. You mentioned you don't have earned income.
Right.
When I'm talking about with a Roth conversion, you don't have those limitations. Okay, you can convert, $100,000 if you wanted. Of course, I don't know that tax-wise that would make sense, but you can, we've had clients in the past that there have been different times in the past when we've been able to do big chunks of money over into Roth, and for them it made sense from their, especially folks that are in a higher tax. If you're someone that's in a 40%, 39 is the highest plus the additional tax that could be added to that, about 3%. So there are those that are in that highest bracket that it may work a little different. Most people, when we're talking about doing Roth conversions, I work with a lot of clients that because they just have Social Security, if they don't have large pensions and their income is mainly from Social Security and maybe their investments, then a lot of times we can do Roth conversions for them and keep them in the lowest tax bracket.
So if you did a Roth conversion, you would still have to count what you took out of your traditional IRA to put into the Roth. If you did a conversion, you still have to have a tax problem there.
There's going to be are you over 70 and a half?
Yes.
Okay, so if you're asking in that question, there's two parts that come up with that. One is, if you're taking your required minimum distributions, which you have to start taking after 70 and a half, yes, you have to take that required minimum distribution first, then you can still convert some amount, potentially. Again, this is very, Joe, I want to really stress here, this is not something that you just go and do. You'd want to we run the tax return ahead of time to make sure it's not going to increase the tax. Let's say you're pulling money out and you're only paying a 10 or 15% tax on it. And you do a Roth conversion, and all of a sudden, because it pushes you up into a higher bracket, it could impact your Social Security benefits being taxed. It could cause you to pay 25% tax instead of 15% tax. It could, create a lot of additional out-of-pocket expense for you. Basically, more of it's going off to the IRS instead of in your pocket. So I really stress that this needs to be done with a good advisor who understands these things and can do the analysis and do the projections, do the returns ahead of time to make sure also we're not triggering like an alternative minimum tax or other things that would cause your taxes to be higher.
I know you're not a soothsayer, but the situation that the market's in right now,
right?
Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel coming, or is this going to be a continuous thing, do you think?
Well, I'm pretty bearish as far as this year goes, with it being an election year and with the way we're starting the year and a number of other reasons, both economic and to do with cycles. But having said that, there are ways that you can weather this and actually make money even in a down year. So we use strategies all the time. I have clients that are making money right now when others are losing money. So, it's a matter of what your long-term goals are and how how you're currently invested. So, that basically, if you'd like to get this, we're going to offer up a retirement income analysis and investment analysis later in the show. So if you'd like to find out more about it, and I'm going to get into some more about investing and share some investing strategies here in the show as well.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, Joe, you have a good day.
Okay.
Take care. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I am going to get into investment strategies I can share with you, some indexes and some of the things I use in my office that help clients in times like this to protect themselves and even make money. Yes, when the market's down 10, wouldn't it be nice if you were making money? We'll show you how to do that when we return. Join us here. We'll be right back on the Retirement Report.